I'm sorry, just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, you meant after the vote or after the public comment?
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, please remain standing for a moment of silence this evening for a Margaret Ardito, staff person that passed away recently, educator from the Shamrock Elementary School. May she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the superintendent please call the rolls?
Mr. Austin.
Present.
Ms. Chisholm.
Here.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Ms. Crowley.
Present.
Mr. Mulrennan.
Present.
Ms. Wetzel.
Present.
Mr. Lipson.
Present. All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, this is our public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 budget. We are going to hear first from our superintendent and his staff regarding the budget updates.
Sure, thank you. First of all, before I get started, I want to acknowledge and say thank you to a group of people that have helped put this together for tonight. The process has been collaborative throughout, and here we are near the finish line. Specifically, Mr. Dizio, who joined the Woburn Public Schools this fall and got thrown into the fire. Ms. Ryan, Ms. Young, Assistant Superintendents, Ms. Patty McKinnon, Assistant Director of Finance. The central office team has been working tirelessly to get to this point. I want to also thank the leadership team of the Woburn Public Schools and the teachers and staff of the Woburn Public Schools. This budget is designed to support everybody in the Woburn Public Schools. I know that the principals have what we call TLTs, teacher leadership teams, to seek feedback from teachers about what their needs are. So I really genuinely hope that people feel that their voices have been heard in this process. So thank you to everybody that makes Woburn such a special place to come to work. At this point, I'm going to just go quickly through the budget packet that you've already seen. The committee has seen multiple times. Turn to Mr. Dizio with some final numbers, and then open it up. So, again, we did try this year, as a result of feedback, to try to make this budget packet more than just a spreadsheet and create a narrative and a rationale for why we are asking for what we are asking for. And so, that being said, there are many things that contribute to our budget. We, as always, align our budget to our strategic vision. One of the things that has happened since we passed the budget last year is that we've welcomed 355 new students into the Woburn Public Schools, or about 8% of an increase since we passed last year's budget. And those students have needs, of course. They are regular ed students, they are special ed students, and they are ML students. And so we are, in real time, adding staff, which we've done this year. And so our budget, as passed in July or June of last year, looks different than it is today. And our budget for next year, hopefully, will meet the needs of our diverse and changing student population. Over the course of the year, we've added, for multilingual students, We've added for family and community engagement to allow for families to engage with us. We've added reading specialists because we need to support all of our learners. And we've added to support school safety initiatives in this budget. Here's a breakdown of our current enrollment: 4,530 students enrolled in the Woburn Public Schools. 14.8% are EL, and as a percentage, that's the highest that Woburn Public Schools has ever been. 9 years ago, when I started in Woburn, it was about 5%. So that number continues to grow every day. And nearly 25% of our students are on IEPs, which carry with it legal ramifications that we need to meet. So how did we get here? We established a starting point, which we've talked about previously. The budget as passed was $78.9 million. Our FY25 starting point, when we added in the new positions we were suggesting, was $80.065 million. We've been asked to actually use the $78.9 million as the starting point, which we did. So our proposed increase from FY24 as passed to tonight is 13.7%. Here are the positions that I was alluding to that were added since July 1st. The newly arrived students required some ML support, which we were able to provide. We've added 5 paraprofessionals, a reading specialist, a team chair, a transitional ed, which is a special education position, another special ed position at the high school, and the HR director. Our budget drivers, and this is where I turn to Mr. Dizio.
I got you. Yes, so when we're looking at the budget drivers, what we're looking at here is what's driving this increase year over year. So if you look down, about 40% is driven by salary. It's important to note that we had some recently settled contracts with custodians, admin assistants. So these saw no impact for fiscal 22 and fiscal 23 budgets, but we're kind of seeing the catch-up of that with the 3-year catch-up for those 3 years' worth of COLA increases. Another one of the big ones that Dr. Crowley just mentioned was the post-July 1 ads that we just discussed. That accounted for about 10% of this increase year over year. Moving on down, 16% is driven by ESSER going away and the need to absorb those expenses into the budget. The next biggest driver that you'll see is special education. We had some line item increases as well as special education transportation. As it relates to electricity, we saw a 6% increase. Just like everyone's seeing at home, we too are seeing increased in our electricity. Moving on down, curriculum, that line increase is due mostly to having to move interventionists and curriculum resources into the operating budget that were also previously held in ESSER. We also have some increased PD time there with the increased half days. We need to have some additional PD days. The next one down is homeless and general ed. Transportation, both of those increased by $200,000. That's a contractual increase for fiscal 25. And then the substitute line increases, that's due mostly to our increasing student population. As we mentioned, 8% increase since October 1st, as well as a rate increase from $90 per day to $125 per day. And then lastly, on building services increases, that's due mostly to difficulty finding licensed tradesmen, and as they retire in fiscal 25, we'll likely have to contract out some of those specialties. And then next slide. So, yeah. The budget drivers that we just scrolling by, this is basically just saying what I said verbally, but within the packet itself. And And then, so the next big piece here is, so what we just looked at was the increase year over year. Now we're sort of transitioning into just fiscal '25 and what makes up the fiscal '25 overall budget. Really no surprise here. I think any business and certainly any city or town can attest to the fact that it's a salary-driven business. So too is ours at 77% almost. The next big ones are also contractual. When we look, it's transportation, utilities, out-of-district tuitions. That makes up about another 16%. So at the end of the day, we're looking at about 8 to 9% of this budget is for supplies and operational costs, and that includes resources for facilities and technology. Yep. And then we see some great artwork from our students. And that really brings us to the budget summary, which, breaks it out by department, both the dollar increase and the percentage increase year over year, and some other things that have been put in there to get to the 13.7%. From here, I think it's a good point to turn it over. If there's any questions, we can certainly dive into the individual budgets if people would like to do that.
Thank you very much. Any questions for administration on the budget presentation? Mrs. Chisholm.
If there was going to be changes made to the budget tonight by this board, when do we want to do that? Before the public meeting or after the public meeting?
Those are generally done after public hearing.
Okay, all right. So, we'll wait.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for administration? Ms. Crowley.
Yeah, I just had a question. One of the major initiatives that the Woburn Public Schools has undertaken very recently is the literacy plan, the comprehensive literacy plan. And I was just wondering how this budget specifically supports that initiative and what specifically is in this budget that really pushes forward that literacy plan.
Sure. So specifically, it has our reading specialists in all of our elementary schools. It has reading interventionists at all of our elementary schools, as well as it maintains the yearly costs of updated supplies and materials as related to all of the evidence-based programming that we purchased, as well as any of the technology that it's also supporting.
So if I heard from a parent that might have a struggling reader or a reader that she feels is not catching up, does this budget keep everything in there for this child to leverage some success?
Yes.
Yes,
And it's not, and these aren't special ed line items, these are in the general education?
Yep. So this is everything that supports Tier 2 instruction, Tier 1 instruction, supports all of our learners in all of our elementary schools, and maintains the work that we're doing right now.
Thank you. Because a lot of, I know our budget really tries to support ML learners and special education learners that are eligible for special education, but also it has all these great Tier 1 supports, right, such as wind block, reading specialists, and these are really leveraging the actual classroom content for all of our learners.
You know, we actually just provided professional development today to all of our interventionists, reading specialists, content specialists, and all Tier 1 and Tier 2 to make sure that everyone was up to date so that everyone was getting the same thing across the district.
Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, congratulations to all that, produced this budget. I said it before, this is it's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort by a lot of people putting out a great educational program, but I think, and we received a couple of emails recently in support of this budget, which I'm also in support of, but if I could kind of put the superintendent or the administrators on notice here. It's been mentioned before that a lot of these, wants and needs. These are the needs of the current district. I don't know if you could think back, Dr. Crowley, or perhaps, one of the other assistant superintendents, even Mr. Dizio. What were some of the wants way back when principals came before you and there's, the what if, if we had more, what could we have added? That I want to emphasize the fact that these are the needs of the district. The wants were already asked for, I'm sure, and you folks, had to eliminate certain things for whatever reasons, financial or whatever, but if you just, think back, what were some of the wants that you would like to keep in here, perhaps, that other administrators may have asked for?
One of the things that comes to mind quickly, the ask, especially at the elementary level, was building subs, building-based subs. Every day we have multiple people out, and they are spending a lot of time working with their existing staff to cover vacancies, which they do, but that would make their operational efficiency increase. And, you know, it's not that much money, but it is when you start adding it up.
That was my point exactly. But when you consider, you know, not that much money, but, you know, and we've been, as someone that's been through many of these budgets, and we used to have people come before us and, you know, ask for 6 people. And unfortunately, they say, can you get by with 3?
Yeah.
You know, so you were probably in that boat quite often this year.
And, you know, I think Mr. Dunkley has consistently asked for more support for the facilities department. And so those are things that kind of go, unfortunately, get pushed to a different level of priority. So again, people ask, the business office has asked for a payroll slash HR assistant, and that didn't make it into the budget. So everybody has asked for something that isn't here.
That's why I wanted to make the point that, you know, again, we've got them in the emails, it's been discussed here at this level, that, you know, the wants versus the needs. And I think these are the needs of the district currently that meet all, as indicated by the administration this evening. So appreciate, you know, where we're at here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. That was a good clarification. Further questions? Ms. Watson?
I just had a quick question. On the salary increases, the contractual, I know we just finished negotiating some of the contracts, and those are good for the next couple of years, so that number looks a little bit larger, but am I correct to assume for the next couple of years, since we have those numbers, they'll kind of level out, and then we might see an increase again in 3 years?
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. I believe right now we are through to 25, 26, and then we will see, as you kind of insinuated, another catch-up. But again, you know, hopefully we're able to settle these contract terms more timely too, and then that way that we're not paying back 1, 2, or even 3 years, and then as well retro. So the goal would be to work to, you know, more timely settle some of these contracts.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Unless there are any further comments, we are about to open the public hearing on the budget. I do want to take a moment first to acknowledge the Honorable Mayor of Woburn, Mr. Michael Kincannon, is joining us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council President, Mr. Jeff Dillon, is here, as is Councilor at Large Robert Toro and Ward 7 Councilor Chuck Viola. I don't think I missed any councilors. All right. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate your being here and giving this budget your attention. I also want to say to members of our audience, this is specifically a meeting for the public hearing on the fiscal year 24 budget. We will, I don't know if there's anyone here who was hoping to speak regarding redistricting. That is not on the agenda for tonight. We will have opportunities to discuss redistricting at upcoming meetings, and in fact, after this discussion, we will talk about the schedule for dealing with and addressing our redistricting needs. So I apologize if anyone came hoping to speak on redistricting tonight. There will be opportunities to do so down the line. I also want to make sure, as people are listening at home and people in the audience, any comments, questions can be directed to me at my city email or my school email, andrewlipset@woburnps.com. Okay? With that, I would accept a motion to open the public hearing for the FY25 budget.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor? Opening
Aye.
public comment? We are opening public comment. I would like to remind people who are offering public comment tonight that you will be, that we are being filmed by the Woburn Public Media Center, so you are, by appearing here, agreeing to be broadcast as well. I ask that you keep your remarks to 3 minutes, that you refrain, please, from any personal attacks against staff members of the Woburn Public Schools. Is there anyone who would like to speak on the FY25 budget this evening? And if you can state your name.
Belinda McConnell, Woburn resident, Woburn High Spanish teacher, and co-president of the WTA. let me start by saying that I appreciate the work that has gone into this. It has been collaborative. This was the first opportunity we had to kind of go line by line when this was released. So I have spent, as has my co-president, a lot of time digging through the kind of nuts and bolts of this budget. And in a year where we have heard how tight this budget was going to be, to say that I'm disappointed in some of the salary increases would be an understatement. I recognize that building a budget is a challenge, and I also want to recognize that all WPS employees work tremendously hard for the benefit of our students. It's just hard for me to comprehend why, in a year where we have heard for over a year that we would be in dire straits, we would see salary increases for nearly every administrator of over 5%, and in a few cases over 30%. I would have hoped to see a 3.75% increase across the board, the same increase that educators had to go on strike to achieve, and that was then awarded to other unions within the district, in order to help build a budget that was more palatable to the city. So I ask again that in the event of cuts, you please consider some of the non-student facing roles before you consider positions or line items that would have a direct impact on students. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address us for public hearing? I'm not
Seeing none,
seeing
Mr.
any.
Chairman, I make...
Mr. Mayor,
I call it. All right.
I'd like to recognize the Honorable Mayor of Woburn, Mr. Michael Kincannon. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thank you. The administration. Good evening. I'm not going to rehash what we talked about last week, other than to, again, reiterate my thanks for the collaboration and just letting those who may not know how long we've been working on this budget. Goes far back as January, I believe, when we first started meeting in my office on Wednesday afternoons. I understand how this budget is built. I understand what it's built upon. I'm here to caution the committee that this is a dramatic increase, and there is a significant impact to the taxpayers of Woburn as a result of what is in front of us tonight. It's my job to take what you have or are about to deliver to me and incorporate it into the overall city budget. And I'm having similar discussions with each of the city department heads. I won't lie, they haven't been every Wednesday for 2.5 hours each, I can assure you. But there have been substantive discussions with these department heads, and they've made the same arguments and pleas and made the same type of requests for staff increases, line item increases, and because of the large request made by the school department in its proposed draft, I've had to take a really, really hard line on many of the other city departments. I will say that educating our youth is probably one of the most important things we do as a community, but it's not the only thing. We also have public safety, public works, library, and I could go down the list of very important functions that city government provides to its residents. And all of that comes at a cost. What we have in front of us will lead to a significant tax increase to the average residential homeowner in Woburn. Larger than we've seen in at least recent memory. And it's my job to make sure that what we put out there can be afforded and absorbed. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. We've had constructive discussions. We've also come to some impasses in terms of what could be reduced from this budget. And again, I caution people, please, let's be careful about using the word cuts. We're talking about a $10.8 million increase year over year, 13% plus increase year over year, the largest increase I think I can ever remember. So if, as a result of tonight's public hearing and your vote and/or actions at City Hall or the City Council, the 10.8 million drops a little bit, it's not a cut. It's not a cut.
It's a cut.
It's not a cut year over year. It's an increase. It's absolutely an increase. So
It's my job to listen to the public comment tonight, the public hearing, work with the city council, and try to produce the very best budget for the city of Woburn that serves our needs and that our folks can afford. There's a meeting tomorrow night with the city council, their finance committee, meeting as a committee of the whole. I expect this committee will present its budget that it votes on tonight. I expect the city council will have questions, and together, we will all adopt a budget that we believe is in the best interest of the citizens of Woburn, the taxpayers of Woburn, the educators of Woburn, and the students of Woburn. So I appreciate your effort. I know it hasn't been an easy year. It's not going to get any easier in the coming months, I can assure you. And I look forward to this committee being very prudent in what it sends forward and scrutinizing every single line item to see if there's any additional funds that can be squeezed out of what comes down to City Hall. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. At this time, I would accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, seeing no one else, Mr. Chairman?
Second.
All in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
That brings us to a vote to send the final 2025 budget to City Hall.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moran.
Make a motion, we submit the draft as presented this evening to the City Hall, City Council, at 89,716,621, as we've been presented this evening.
Second.
All right. Discussion on the motion.
On the motion, I have a couple of things that I'm quite concerned about in this budget, and it's not going to be helpful to the bottom line, but the redistricting that we've been handed, it's going to be something that's going to be a tough decision to make, whether or not we can even do it this year. And we've incorporated a $500,000 cut to our budget with the hopes of saving that money. And if in fact we cannot do redistricting this year, that's going to be a huge number for us to take. So I would like the committee just to think about adding that back in so that we could be assured that if it doesn't happen this year, we're not going to have to lay off teachers and make a bad situation even worse. So I think that that's our hopes and dreams that we can redistrict, but what if we don't? And what if this doesn't come full circle and we can make those things? I don't know what anybody else feels about that, but that's making me extremely nervous because we're a little later than we had originally planned on the redistricting coming to us. And if it doesn't happen, what are we going to do?
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, but I do.
Ms. Cormier.
I agree with Ms. Chisholm as far as I've said from the beginning, as we've discussed the redistricting as far as the budget. I don't like to assume any amount is going to be spent or saved regarding the redistricting until we see it actually happens. I know we got some preliminary numbers last week in the range of 300 plus up to 600,000, which does not include the transportation increases that are potential with the redistricting. So because of how the timeline plays out and when this budget is due, I don't want to assume any savings at this point. So I would support taking out that $500,000 that was earmarked from the redistricting. Thank you.
Other thoughts on the budget as a whole or on this topic? Ms. Crowley.
So if this budget, we pass this budget and we send it to City Hall, if we're told to reduce the budget, it is a cut because this budget is level funded. There is no more orange juice to squeeze from the orange. So if there's cuts made by the City Council, that will lead to layoffs. It will absolutely lead to a loss of staff. Now, I don't know what word you can use besides cut, but that is a cut. So we will have to reduce the amount of our workforce in order to meet the demand that apparently the City Council is ready to place on us. So during the mayor's speech, we did not hear what his recommendation is going to be to the City Council as to what the city can afford. So again, we're floating in the middle of the sea, and the only thing that we have guiding us, which we should be guiding us, is the needs of our students. All of the needs of our students, built upon the legal mandated positions that we have to fund for next year, that don't exist yet, but we have to fund, and keeping the programming level as we want to. So to say that there's anything left in this budget to cut, from our perspective, is impossible. So it is a good budget, it is expensive budget, we don't love it, but at the same time, we had a teacher strike, we had contract negotiations, we had a tremendous market adjustment for paraprofessionals that we all supported. The whole city knew that we were losing our ESSER money, that we were working with the union to create a good COLA for our staff. Everyone knew this. Now all of a sudden, we're faced with potential cuts. So I'm surprised that this is how it's going, because I remember people campaigning and saying that they completely support the schools, and now I'm hearing otherwise. So that being said, I'm in favor of this budget, and I just want to caution the city that they will force layoffs. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to put it in the budget, we're going to make a tab, and it's going to call city cuts. And that's what we're going to do in our budget. We're going to list all of the cuts that we have to make because of the city in our budget.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Crowley. Ms. Watson.
Yes, thank you. I do think if we do have to reduce staff, we need to keep in mind a reduction in staff could lead to more out-of-district placements, which will cost a lot more money than that staff member. Also leads to that student not being inside of the district where they were previously, felt comfortable, were learning, and then whoever was helping them, their teachers, et cetera, were pulled out. So it's unfortunate for the student, and then it also costs us more money. Also, if we lose staff, parents are going to start to look at that. Oh, should I send my kid to a private school, or can I keep them in public school? If we lose kids to that, we lose funding there too, and then parents are not staying in our schools. So I think that's also something to look at. And a huge part of this budget, like Ms. Crowley said and like has been talked about, is 30.93% is from salary increases. There's nothing that we can cut there, nor would we want to. It's well deserved by the staff. It's been referred to as like fluff. There's no fluff inside of the budget. This is a budget that we really need, and this is what our students need. This is what our staff needs in order to be able to walk in the doors, feel safe, feel confident, and learn and do their job. So if I were to go line item through line item, I would find it very difficult to find anything to pull out. If anything, I would love to add more. And we've had an 8% increase in population. The budget is going to go up, and electricity goes up. Everything costs more, so it's going to cost more just to open our school doors, let alone get kids inside of them learning. So supportive of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Ms. Cormier.
Yes, I just want to reiterate, as has been said throughout this entire budget cycle, is that this is a realistic budget, that years before, when we've had to make cuts or we've had to reduce lines, we've done it, and that's not the reality of what is going to be sent. As we know, every year we see the number that's passed for July 1 and what we spend by June 30th. It's never the same number because things change. People have to be added. We don't want to add, I personally don't want to add a teacher in November because a class was this close to being over the line, but we cut that, we removed that teacher, knowing that it was going to happen. Then you're adding a 5th grade classroom in November. Now the kids are split up. They start with a new teacher. It disrupts the year when we knew the whole time we were going to need that person. So to me, this is realistic. If we are working with the numbers that we know based on what Mr. Dizio has projected with Ms. McKinnon as far as electricity, all these other moving parts, we can cut $100,000 out of electricity, but we're going to spend it regardless because that's what it costs to run the school system. And so I know it's been said many times, and I just wanted to reiterate again that this is an appropriate budget. We can cut and pick from we can trim from different areas, but that's not going to be the reality of running the school year for the year 24-25. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cormier. Mrs. Chisholm.
I have another point that it's making me nervous too, is because we don't have numbers, and I don't like to cut things when we don't have facts in front of us. And the early retirement incentive, we do not know if that number is going to work. Because I know of people that had put out something saying that they were interested in it, but they know now they're never going to fall through with that. And we have pretty much said, yeah, we're counting on that teacher to retire, and they're not going to. So that, again, is something that I would keep in there because it's out there and we've made the offer, but I would like to reduce that line. So instead of a $750,000 cut, we could probably make a $500,000 cut and live a little bit more comfortable with that. So I don't know if that's something that the committee, again, wants to add back in, but it's food for thought. Because it makes me, and again, I think this budget's high, and it's going to cost, but like Ms. Crowley said, we all knew this was coming. This is not a surprise to anybody. And everybody campaigning was to how much they love the schools and how excited they were to be supporting the schools. So I truly hope that those words are there tomorrow night, too. So, but it's just, but I would just like to say, those are two things that I'm a little nervous about, and I just don't want to have to, cut someplace else because we don't get that many people to actually take on the incentive.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. Just maybe wrap things up here as well, Mr. Chairman. Again, tonight's the night of the budget. You mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, next week is redistricting. Ms. Crowley, your Thursday night is the capital planning building. Wednesday. Okay, so there you go. Everybody's confused. So there's so many things going on school-wise right now. And I think the important part tonight is this budget. City councilors that are present tonight, city councilors will see it tomorrow night, deliberate on it, perhaps allow it to go through, perhaps, request some reductions. But I think, tonight's priority is this budget. Tomorrow night, presentation. Wednesday night, school building plan. Where is that going to go with us? I mean, we have people up in North Woburn that are still trying to figure out that plan, the building plan. To Ms. Chisholm's point, the early retirement, and a lots of unknowns. But the knowns are that these are the needs currently tonight for our school district to operate. And you're right, Ms. Chisholm, the early retirement, the redistricting money, you have to have a figure in there. So we have a figure in there, and it is in there, plus, minus, whatever it is. But I think the important thing tonight to all of us is to get this done, pass this budget down, let the council do what they have to do, and then we'll deal with the consequences later. But there's so many things happening for the education of our students right now and our staff and families that are involved in doing it. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, so let's see how much we really appreciate them, and pass this budget. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm for this budget. In the past, I was actually for the 17% going forward. And I say that, as I said then, the question I asked was, is this our needs or is this our wants? And I was told this is our needs. And so one thing I try to make a point in my household is that if my children need something, to come to me, to not have them in the position that they can't speak to me. And I feel like this is where we are. It's almost caution to move forward. Why caution to speak about what we need? If this is what we need, there should be no caution. There should be, let me stand on my truth. This is the truth. This is what we need in order to run the schools effectively, and to do it in accordance to the law on top of that. This is the statement, I'm paraphrasing, that was said not too long ago, that we must move forward in accordance to how the law should be ran, right? And so if that's the case, then this budget is in accordance to the law, then it should move forward, and it should not be a hesitation. It's almost like it's like us against them. This is just my personal point of view. And it should be like we should be walking together hand in hand in unity, because that's how you can't spell community without unity. And so I'm for this budget. I'm for pushing it forward, and let's just stand on truth. And this is what what's needed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Austin. All right. Is there anything further, including any proposed action?
Well, I'll make a motion that we take the $500,000 that we cut and add that back in for the redistricting, just so to make sure that we are not going to short sell anybody.
Okay. I have
Second.
A motion. I have a second. Discussion on that motion. The motion on the table is to add back in $500,000 due to uncertainty over the eventual cost of redistricting, if any. Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All right. All in favor of adding back $500,000? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. That motion passes.
And then also on the amount of the early retirement incentive, I'd like to see that reduced from 750 maybe to 500,000, just to give us a little bit, because I know of a couple of teachers that are not going to follow through. So I just, again, you know, if we cut this money and then all of a sudden we realize they're not retiring, we could be in some big-time trouble.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second,
Okay.
on the motion,
On the motion, Ms. Cormier.
at what point do we expect to have a final acknowledged agreement on the early retirement?
Yeah, so I actually talked to Mr. Wyman about an hour ago. He's been the HR director, so he's been working with the WTA and the SEIU unions on an MOA because it is, separate from the seat collective bargaining agreement. We anticipate finishing that tomorrow and then pushing it to all staff, either late tomorrow afternoon or Wednesday. That's the current timeline.
Okay.
When do they have to have answers to us, though, so we'd have something concrete?
So I think we talked about the Thursday or Friday the following week, just prior to Memorial Day.
Okay.
Trying to give people enough, it's a pretty significant decision.
Correct.
So we want to be respectful of that. But we also understand that there's operationally needs, but financially needs, so. But again, want staff, to your point, Ms. Chisholm, people reconsider, and so we want to allow for that too.
I just want to make sure that, I guess I understand the process, because if there is savings with redistricting, and if we do have people who opt for the early retirement, I guess I'm curious how that gets applied to the budget after, or, I mean, I want to be as realistic and appropriate as possible, and I don't want to suddenly have all this, I mean, I don't mind a sudden cash flow, but, I think it would be just right to, if there is a savings, to apply it to the budget and adjust, just as we do adjust things coming in through the year. So I guess I'm curious on what a timeline might that look like, and if we do change these items, is it something that we can update leading up to July 1st, I guess, or June 30th? That's putting a thought out there in the ether, that's all.
Can I get a clarification on the question?
Yes.
Make sure I understand exactly.
So I guess
what
my
you're asking.
question is, if we vote to reduce this number for the early retirement in this budget, and the number comes back higher than what the number we pass forward after tonight is, does that get updated in the budget at any
No.
point?
Nope.
Okay.
That would result in,
A surplus to the schools?
it would result in more money in our budget than is what we will wind up spending in those areas.
In that area? Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on this particular motion? Okay. All in favor of reducing the early retirement estimate from $750,000 to $500,000, say aye.
Aye.
No.
No.
We're going to need a roll call vote on this one. Dr. Crowley.
Mr. Austin,
Yes.
Ms. Chisholm,
Yes.
Ms. Cormier,
No.
Ms. Crowley,
No.
Mr. Morenon,
No,
Ms. Wetzel,
No.
Mr. Lipset.
No. Okay, that motion fails. So the early retirement incentive will remain at $750,000 in our budget. Are there any other actions to be taken on the motion to send this budget to City Hall as written and now amended to remove $500,000 from our estimate for redistricting?
So do we have a new percent? Amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that change, the new budget total is $90,216,620 for a budget increase of $11,311,227 and a budget percentage increase of 14.34%.
Okay. Let the amended motion reflect those numbers.
a number again, Alex, I'm sorry.
Sure thing.
The dollars, I guess.
Yep, so $90,216,620.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
14.3.
14.34, yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Disney. All right. Is there anything further on that motion? All in favor of submitting that budget number as just read by Mr. Dizio to City Hall for our final budget? say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The ayes have it.
All right.
Thank you. And as we have said, Dr. Crowley and I and members of the committee will come before the Finance Subcommittee of the City Council tomorrow to discuss this budget as we have set it down.
Do you know if you're first up or when are you up?
We are third up or so on the agenda tomorrow. All right, thank you very much. So I will now accept a motion to adjourn. Now, just to clarify for the public, we do have a second meeting posted immediately following this one. It should be fairly short, but we can't post additional agenda items for a public hearing, so we are going into a second meeting.
Motion to adjourn this special meeting.
All right, I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to take a short break, a short recess in between, and then we will come back for our second meeting of the evening. Thank you all for bearing with us.
And obviously, we don't have a meeting tomorrow. You just have city
We do
hall.
not have a meeting.
You guys are going to see it all.
So, we have begun our second meeting of the evening. This one will hopefully be quite short. I wanted to just call a quick meeting to discuss procedures around our redistricting vote.
Do we need to roll call?
Yes, I guess we probably need a roll call too.
Mr. Austin,
President.
Ms. Chisholm,
Yes.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Ms. Crowley.
Yes.
Mr. Morenon.
Still here.
Ms. Wetzel. Mr. Lipset.
Here. All right. So one thing that I wanted to put before the committee is a process for determining our ultimate vote on redistricting. We have before us 5 redistricting options, and as we have talked about already, the option to hold off for a year or not move forward immediately. I wanted to put before the committee the question of whether there were thoughts on how we proceed with that vote. Now, in clarification, I put this on the agenda when I wasn't sure what our options would look like, whether we would have a larger number. So I don't know that we necessarily need to take action here. I think it's possible that we will simply be able to proceed as is. But I wanted to at least address it in case members had feedback on how we might move forward with our vote. And we'll talk in a moment about scheduling that vote. It is fine if no one has feedback. We can just go for it. Okay. All right. So I think we will table that, and we will simply proceed when we do vote on redistricting. Simply proceed with the information before us, and it will come to us as it will. That brings us to a meeting schedule. We do have to discuss a few scheduling items so that we can make sure the public is aware of when we will be voting on redistricting, when we will be discussing redistricting, and when the public will have the chance to comment on it. First, I would like to propose to the committee if somebody could make a motion to create a school committee meeting on Thursday, May 23rd, that is next Thursday, to schedule our final redistricting vote.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion?
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Moran, go ahead.
Again, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman. So that'd be the final vote. I'm just trying to wait for your comments as far as the public commenting here, there, and everywhere prior to that.
That's correct.
Initial
So
vote.
that would be a meeting that would include public comment, at which and after which we would then have a vote on redistricting. So all in favor of that motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
7 o'clock, Mr. Chair.
7 o'clock, correct. Thank you. The second item here is we have talked about an additional public forum for redistricting. I think what might make sense is to have an additional meeting of the school committee in full so that first the public can have an additional opportunity to speak at public comment, and then so that the committee has the opportunity to ask questions of administration as well about the redistricting options, about how these could be put into operation, and about some of the priorities and issues that led us here and how well they are reflected in these options. Looking over committee schedules as we sort of discussed this, it looks to me like Monday, May the 20th is the best of these options. I'm aware that not every committee member may be able to make that. This is a last-minute addition. But I would ask for a motion to add a school committee meeting, a special meeting on redistricting on Monday, May 20th.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
On the motion?
Yeah, Mr. Moore.
I indicated through your email this afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Again, no votes that evening, it's just informational purposes.
That is
only.
correct. There will be no votes that evening. We will simply be discussing
Other
redistricting,
updates and things.
hearing
whatnot.
from the public, and having the opportunity to ask questions.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Crowell.
In terms of open meeting law and doing a back and forth dialogue, are we suspending the rules or?
My anticipation is not that we would be in dialogue with the public, that there would be a public comment. They would be able to provide us with their views, and then we would be able, as a committee, to ask questions of administration.
Got it.
If those
Okay.
questions are inspired by our public comment, that's fine. If they are questions that other members simply have, that's fine too. Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
Thank you, Mr. Liff, said that. That clarifies.
Okay.
things. I
All right.
appreciate that.
Any other discussion on that motion?
I'll just make a motion, we post the Monday, May 20th, school committee meeting for redistricting, informational, whatever you have to word it, make it legal,
Okay.
at 7 PM here at the Joyce.
Okay. We have that motion. It has been seconded.
Do we want to change it to 6? Do you think it would be better to do it at 6? No.
It sounds like that may not work for all committee members.
I just figured we'd be out of here earlier.
So, I mean, I hear that. I think we will have a couple of opportunities that week for the public to make comments. So we might think about if that public comment goes in a significantly long direction, we might ask people if they might be willing to come later on in the week instead.
Okay.
But all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we will be
At
meeting
7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock in this room on Monday, May 20th, to hear from the public, to ask questions of administration regarding redistricting. No vote will be taken that night. We will then meet again on Thursday, May 23rd, in this room at 7 p.m. We will hear from the public once again. We will deliberate on redistricting, and we will make a final vote. The last question that I have, and in part this is for administration, is it too early to make a determination? We have a meeting that's currently on the schedule for May 29th. We are sort of coming towards the end of the school year, so what I don't know is the degree to which there are things that we are going to need to discuss that don't maybe have anything to do with either the budget or redistricting, where we might want to hold on to that meeting. This maybe is not something that we need to determine at this exact moment. So, all right. Is there anything further from the committee before we adjourn?
Should we narrow it down to what options, or do we have, anybody have any feelings about what options we would be supporting, so people don't go crazy over something that the majority is not going to support?
That is not on our agenda tonight, so we can't really discuss. That is something where on May 20th, we could certainly, committee members, as it will be on our agenda, could discuss and could at least make statements of support or opposition. We wouldn't be able to take any votes that evening, but members of the committee would be able to make their voice heard.
Okay.
All right. If there's nothing further, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all.
What does this mean?
We will see you.